Are you struggling with anger, envy, or gluttony? You are not alone. These deadly sins are more prevalent than you might think. Join us as we explore how these ancient vices manifest in modern life and discover practical strategies for overcoming them. The concept of the 7 deadly sins dates back to early Christian teachings. They were not originally listed in the Bible as a group, but rather developed over time by theologians to help people recognize the moral pitfalls that hinder spiritual growth. These sins include pride, greed, wrath, envy, lust, gluttony, and sloth. Although ancient in origin, they remain relevant today, appearing in subtle and socially accepted ways. In our fast-paced, media-saturated world, the line between sin and self-expression is often blurred. That is why revisiting these ideas with a modern lens is not only valuable but necessary. Pride is often called the root of all sin. In its most dangerous form, it is an inflated sense of self-worth that denies the need for humility. In modern life, pride often takes the form of social media perfectionism, the pursuit of attention, and the unwillingness to admit mistakes. It tells us we are the center of our own universe and discourages gratitude or openness to correction. The danger of pride is that it isolates us. When we stop listening to others or refuse to see our own faults, we cut ourselves off from real growth. The first step in overcoming pride is choosing humility. This can be practiced in small ways, such as acknowledging someone else's success, accepting feedback, or simply saying, "I was wrong." Greed is the excessive desire for material gain, and it often disguises itself as ambition. In a culture driven by consumerism and constant competition, greed is often rewarded rather than discouraged. It whispers that we never have enough, that we must keep climbing, spending, and collecting. But in doing so, we begin to prioritize things over people, success over integrity, and consumption over contentment. Greed traps us in a cycle of dissatisfaction. The key to breaking free is generosity. When we give freely of our time, money, or attention, we disrupt the lie that our value is tied to what we own. Wrath, or uncontrolled anger, has many faces today. It is not only explosive outbursts, but also quiet resentment, online rage, and passive aggression. Our modern environment can be stressful and divisive, making anger a common emotional response. But when left unchecked, it can damage relationships, fuel bitterness, and lead to destructive decisions. To address wrath, we must first recognize its source. Is it fear? Frustration? Hurt? By practicing emotional awareness, expressing feelings in healthy ways, and developing patience, we can channel our anger into action that heals rather than harms. Envy is the desire for what someone else has. It is comparison turned toxic. Social media often fuels envy by constantly showcasing the best parts of other people's lives. We begin to measure our worth by what others possess or accomplish. Envy corrodes contentment and leads to resentment. It distracts us from our own journey. Gratitude is a powerful remedy. When we focus on what we do have and cultivate appreciation for our own path, we weaken envy's grip. Learning to celebrate others without diminishing ourselves is a vital part of personal peace. Lust, in its broadest sense, is a disordered desire for pleasure, often of a sexual nature but not exclusively. In a world of instant gratification, it is easier than ever to pursue pleasure without connection. Lust can reduce others to objects and weaken our ability to form deep, respectful relationships. It thrives in secrecy and impulsivity. The path to healing begins with seeing others as whole persons, not just means to an end. Practicing discipline, protecting our minds and hearts from harmful influences, and seeking meaningful connection over momentary satisfaction can reframe how we approach desire. Gluttony is often misunderstood as simply overeating, but it refers to any kind of overindulgence, whether it is food, entertainment, shopping, or even information. We live in a binge-driven culture. More is often seen as better, but when consumption becomes a way to escape emotions or avoid purpose, gluttony takes root. It dulls awareness and numbs us from life's deeper meaning. Mindfulness is a powerful tool here. By asking ourselves why we are reaching for more and pausing before we act, we can make choices that nourish rather than distract. Moderation is not deprivation, it is wisdom in action. Sloth is not just laziness, it is a kind of inner resistance to doing what is meaningful or necessary. It often shows up as procrastination, spiritual indifference, or emotional disengagement. In today's world, we might appear busy on the surface but feel empty inside. Sloth drains our energy for the things that matter most: faith, family, purpose, and self-growth. To combat sloth, we must reconnect with meaning. Setting small goals, developing consistent habits, and leaning into our calling can reawaken our sense of purpose. Activity alone is not the cure. Intentional, purposeful action is what revitalizes the soul. The 7 deadly sins are not just ancient warnings. They are timeless mirrors, reflecting the ongoing struggle between our higher selves and our baser instincts. They challenge us to look within, to name our tendencies honestly, and to move toward the virtues that lead to wholeness. Pride calls for humility. Greed calls for generosity. Wrath calls for patience. Envy calls for gratitude. Lust calls for purity. Gluttony calls for temperance. Sloth calls for diligence. None of us is immune, but by becoming aware, we gain the power to change. These sins may still whisper to us in modern voices, but so do the truths that set us free. As you continue your journey, remember that growth begins with honesty, is strengthened by discipline, and is guided by grace. The struggle is real, but so is the hope, and the more we choose virtue over vice, the more clearly we reflect the divine image in which we were made.